Well, hello once again, readers, writers, fans, and lovers of the paranormal. Welcome to another exciting and entertaining and educational episode of The Writing Lair. My name is Brady Longmore. I'm an independently published author. I write and publish books, fiction, horror, fantasy, anything to do with paranormal. I currently have 4 books right now in publication. I have written in horror and fantasy, a Portal Fantasy trilogy, and I like to use this channel to talk about reading, writing, and I like to tell and discuss the paranormal, legends, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, you name it. That's my deal. So if you feel like you might be a kindred spirit with me, and this is your first time here, I invite you to go watch my other videos. And if this is something that you think you could be benefited by, or this is like I said, you feel like you're a kindred spirit, I invite you to please like and subscribe to my channel and help me grow this. I'm just a starving artist, and I need your help. So with that said, let's get started with today's episode. Okay, so tonight is let me tell you, I am pulling another all-nighter. It seems to be like I'm going to do some writing tonight, but I thought before I started writing, I would cut a quick YouTube video for y'all. And I have, first of all, I can't wait. I'll tell you guys, I don't want to reveal it yet, just in case it doesn't come to pass, but I have this something in the works for an episode of The Writing Lair, another field trip, and this one's going to be awesome because it's going to be, I'm going to take you guys with me to a bona fide haunted location, I guess is the way to put it. So I've got it in the works. I don't want to reveal too much, but I have permission. Tentative permission from a property owner, and I'm going to take you guys, and we're going to actually be able to go inside this place and just have a look around. Don't expect me to be doing like a bunch of ghost hunting, because that's not my thing, but we'll go check it out. For tonight, before I start writing, I thought I'm just going to, for those of you who follow me already and have read my books, I thought I'd give you guys a little Easter egg, something that not very many people know. My latest trilogy is called The Fifth Corner, and that's what tonight's Easter egg. So let me show you the cover here real quick. So this is The Fifth Corner. I got to move my own mouse out of the way of the screen. By the way, I'm using my webcam again tonight. I know the quality's not quite as high, but I figure it's sufficient for what we're doing tonight. And it seems to do better with the low lighting here down in the lair. So until I get better lighting and a better camera figured out, this isn't that bad. Especially you're all probably mostly watching on your phones anyway. So anyway, a little 7-inch screen. So this is the cover. This is book 1 of The Fifth Corner. It is, and I found out this week, this story has the genre is called Portal Fantasy. When you write about characters, your characters find a portal, a doorway into another world. So like the Chronicles of Narnia would be considered a portal fantasy. So that's what this is. I didn't know what to call it after I'd published it. I was like, it's fantasy, it's adventure, it's in our world, but it's not. So Portal Fantasy is, I guess, what it's called. So anyway, this is book 1. The whole trilogy is titled after the first book, The Fifth Corner, but book 1 is also known as The Fifth Corner. And when I was getting ready to publish this, and I love the cover of this puppy. I don't know if I can get in there close, but anyway, that's the cover, nice and close. But when I was talking to the graphic artist about the cover design, and by the way, this is actually, so we used a map. If you look at this is a real old map. It's like maybe 100-year-old map of the Rocky Mountains, the wilderness of Idaho, which is where I live, and which is where part of the story takes place. The beginning part, anyway, takes place in Idaho, and we had the whole cover was pretty much designed, but I specifically wanted a backpacker on the cover, and someone with a backpack. And I couldn't believe how difficult it was. I was looking through, I talked to the graphic designer, and we were both scouring these stock image sites with backpackers, and we're typing in hiker, backpacker, adventurer, all these words, and trying to come up with the right image. And nothing was coming up. I was getting so frustrated because every picture of a backpacker showed them facing a waterfall or something, putting their hands out like this. And I was like, no. I just want a guy that looks like he's like in the middle of a hike and he just saw something. So we couldn't find anything. I wasn't happy with the images I was finding. I wasn't happy with the images the artist was finding. He was getting frustrated with me because I was being a picky pain in the butt. And I finally realized, you know what? I'll go take my own picture. So I grabbed my own backpack, my own gear, because that's one of my hobbies. I like to hike and backpack, and I've done a fair amount of it. And I grabbed my own gear, and I grabbed my 16-year-old son, who is like the full-grown size of a man. He's like 6 foot tall, 215 pounds. And I threw on some backpacking stuff on him. We went out in the backyard, and I used my phone, and I snapped some pictures of him. I had him pose for me. I sent them to the designer, and he thought they were very usable. The quality, the everything looked good. And he actually took and photoshopped a little stubble on his chin. So let me show you that again. So that, get it up nice and close. So that little dude right there is my oldest son, Brock, posing for the book cover. So that's his claim to fame. And ladies, he is single, but he's still just a kid, so leave him alone. I'm just kidding. He wouldn't mind, He wouldn't mind a little female attention, I'm sure. But anyway, that's my little Easter egg for you. Just kind of a fun little story about the Fifth Corner. Anyway, so for tonight, I'm just going to shamelessly plug the book a little bit. And I'm going to read in my best narrator voice the first half of the first chapter. And let me grab the book again. So bear with me. I'm going to try to do my best kind of audible, because I am eventually going to put this out on Audible or on audiobook. So let me just read. It takes about 12 minutes probably to read as much as I'm going to read, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Let me open it up. Chapter 1 of the Fifth Corner. Are you ready for this, people? All right. Okay, and available on Amazon. Okay, The Fifth Corner by Brady Longmore. Chapter 1. Jake Preston eased back on the throttle to reduce airspeed, allowing the Cessna 185 to shed altitude. The agile four-seater responded accordingly, and soon the jagged crags and snow-capped peaks of the Frank Church wilderness were floating past his cockpit window. He marveled at the staggering remoteness of the area, tree-topped peaks and craggy spires spreading in overlapping patterns as far as the eye could see. And let me just make sure I did have to run this by the publisher, and he did give his special permission for this. So this is kind of a special moment. He's kind of a weird guy. Anyway, back to the story. "It is so pretty," a beautiful accented voice crackled through his headset. He tore his attention away from the rugged mountain vistas to the woman seated next to him. The morning sun gilded her yellow blonde hair in a halo of gold and sparkled in her oceanic eyes as she beheld the massive landscape with the wonder of a child. He smiled, watching her peer through the viewfinder of his Nikon, snapping pictures. "Not as beautiful as you, Maggie," he said. Yeah, it was a pretty cheesy line, but sometimes cheesy works with girls. You just have to know how to do it right. It's all about timing. Sure enough, she took the camera from her face and let it rest protectively in her lap. She was wearing those faded jeans he liked, then blew him a kiss, her rose-colored lips making a cute little pucker. He pretended to catch the kiss in his hand and then touched it to his cheek. A little more cheese. She smiled and resumed taking pictures. I am one lucky guy, he thought, as he gave his instruments a quick glance. And he was lucky, married to a beautiful woman and doing what he loved for a living. Ever since he was a kid, thumbing through issues of National Geographic at the dentist's office, he dreamed of being a photojournalist. He once asked his dad, "You mean people actually get paid to travel the world, taking pictures of cool stuff?" When the answer came in the affirmative, he knew the path his life would take. There had never been any doubt. And what a path it had been. At just 30 years old, Jake had been to nearly every continent, visited dozens of countries, interviewed warlords, dined with chiefs, been the guest of a sultan, danced with a princess, been frisked by a Secret Service agent, rafted sections of the Amazon, Nile, Yangtze, and Danube, backpacked in the Andes, French Alps, Carpathians, Urals, and Rockies, just to name a few of his adventures. But none of those adventures compared with the rush of Magdalena Samuelsson. He met Maggie about a year ago in her native country of Sweden. He was there to cover the emerging story of Middle Eastern and North African refugees inundating the Nordic nation, bringing its famous hospitality to the brink of collapse. One day, just by chance, Jake had learned about Alvdalen, a remote Swedish village with a tiny population of people that spoke a nearly forgotten language all their own. A local man in a Stockholm pub told him that the language had been compared to the famous Elvish from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. As a matter of fact, the language was known as Elfdalian. Only about 3,000 people in the world could even speak it. This is all true, by the way. There really is a village in Sweden named Alvdalen where they speak their own forgotten language almost. It's protected by the government, and they're trying to keep the language from dying off. But it's this ancient form, kind of a Germanic, I don't know, language. But no one else can speak it, just the people in this village. And it's because this village was isolated for years and years, deep in the country. So anyway, little aside there. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink. Hope you guys are with me, still with me. All right. Jake was convinced this was a place he just had to see. Besides, the whole refugee story was beginning to depress the hell out of him anyway. The long and short of it, Maggie Samuelsson happened to be a resident of this Alvdalen, and the two of them had hit it off immediately. She was a Norse beauty, blonde hair, blue eyes, long legs, and the athletic build of an avid cross-country skier. Initially, he only intended on spending one night in Alvdalen before returning to the States. That was before he met Maggie at the hotel where she worked the front desk. One night became two nights became a week, and soon he was traveling all over Scandinavia with her. And for one of the few times in his life, he found himself head over heels. It wasn't easy maintaining such a long-distance relationship. She had her life in Sweden, and he had his life in, well, wherever his job took him. But they kept in close touch through social media and texting, and he made stopovers in Sweden as much as he possibly could. But despite all the efforts, it felt like they were still spending too much time apart. The time came to take the next step. A month ago, during one of his routine visits, he went down on bended knee and, in Elfdalian, popped the question. It was a fairy tale moment when she flung herself into his arms and accepted his proposal with the most passionate kiss he had ever received. Little romance there. The plan was simple. She would learn the ins and outs of his profession, and they would work together as a team. It would be perfect. So as soon as it could be arranged, he brought her back to the States with him, home to Idaho to begin her training and their new life together. A quick appointment at the county courthouse made things legal. They planned to return to Sweden later in the summer for a traditional wedding in her village. He had always wanted to do a story about the remote airstrips of the Frank Church Wilderness in Idaho, and since it was so close to home, it seemed like the perfect job to ease Maggie into her apprenticeship. "How many mountains are there?" Maggie asked. "It seems endless from up here." "Well, it's the largest designated wilderness area in the United States outside of Alaska. A little over 2 million acres, more than 3 million if you lump in some of the surrounding national forests," he explained. "That means no roads, no towns, no development. It's all protected." "Wow," she said, bringing the camera back up to her eye. "So that's why all the landing strips, because no roads?" "Exactly. In fact, most people would be surprised to learn that Idaho has more of these wilderness landing strips than Alaska. Of course, the bush pilots in Alaska just land wherever they think they can put a plane." He laughed, having been a passenger for some insane Alaska bush landings. "But if there are no towns in these mountains, then why all the landing strips?" Jake shrugged. "I guess they're mainly for hunters, fishermen, and rafters. Sportsmen." He flashed her a conspiratorial smile. "You know who actually lives around here and uses some of these little airstrips?" Maggie scrunched her face up. "Who?" "One of your favorite human beings of all time." He began to whistle the famous theme song from the Indiana Jones movies. Little hat tip to my favorite movies. Her mouth popped open and she nearly lost her piece of gum. "No way." She looked around as if Harrison Ford might suddenly appear out of nowhere. Jake laughed and put a hand on her knee. "It's true," he said. "He has a ranch in Wyoming and loves to fly. A lot of local pilots have run into him unexpectedly in these parts." That's also true. A little truth. "That would be so cool if we met him," she said, beaming a killer smile at him. "Yes, it would, but don't get your hopes up too high, doll," he said in his best Indian impersonation. She put her hand on his leg. "Too late for that," and she laughed. And she was beautiful. And he was very lucky indeed. "We are going to land on that?" Maggie asked, staring from the window at the pine-covered canyon below. "No sweat," Jake said. He banked, bringing the aircraft on a line of approach with what amounted to little more than a narrow ribbon of dirt carved out of the trees on the canyon floor. "No sweat," Maggie said, tightening her seatbelt. "Sure, okay, if you say so." "Okay, it's a little tricky," he admitted as he cut the throttle. "But it's nothing to worry about. I've done it before, and trust me, I wouldn't even attempt it if I had any doubts about our safety." Maggie seemed to take an amount of reassurance from this and visibly relaxed. "Besides, no need to be nervous yet. This is just a practice approach to help me with my timing and stuff. I'll make the real attempt on the next pass." She smiled and nodded. "What does that American say again? Practice makes perfect?" Jake guided them in, low and slow. The wings were perfectly aligned over the landing strip, the tops of the pines floating past on either side. Conditions couldn't have been any better, and he wished he had just gone ahead and landed. It was too late for that, however, so he throttled up and pulled back on the yoke, preparing to come around for another approach. Maggie clapped her hands. "You are good." "Thanks." The Cessna climbed above the mountains that formed the little canyon. Flying a plane through a climb out in this terrain involved a little more pucker factor than Jake cared for. But the Cessna performed well, and soon he was able to relax a little as he leveled off and prepared for another approach. "Did you see any good spots for us to camp down there?" he asked. "Can we put our tent by the little stream?" "We can put our tent anywhere you'd like. Or we could just unroll our sleeping bags and sleep out under the stars." "Yes." She leaned in close to him and held the camera at arm's length. "A selfie?" he asked, feigning disgust. "You know I've got a plane to fly here." "Smile," she commanded with pouting lips. He didn't have to work very hard to conjure up a sincere smile. She puckered her lips, kissing him on the cheek, and clicked the camera's shutter. And that was when the engine sputtered, once, then twice, and then died. Maggie gripped his arm. "Jake!" she cried, her voice dripping with mortal fear. "Hang on," he said, doing his best to compensate for the sudden loss of thrust. His body immediately broke into a cold sweat as he rammed the yoke forward, pitching the nose of the plane into a violent dive. The 185 had a powerful engine, but without any thrust it became a boat anchor. A nosedive was Jake's only hope to keep up the wind speed necessary to have any hope at all of a controlled crash. "Turn around," Maggie screamed, still gripping his arm like a vice. "Back to the airstrip." "I can't. We're not high enough. She'll stall and we'll nose right into the ground." "What are you going to do then? Are we going to crash?" The panic in Maggie's voice escalated with each question. "Don't mind my furnace kicking on, please. Just ignore it. Just ignore the furnace." Back to the story. "Maggie, I need to fly this plane," he said, knowing he had maybe 30 seconds till impact. "Just hang on, sweetheart." It was the best he could do for her right now. A low-altitude loss of power was about the worst scenario a pilot could expect to encounter, especially in this kind of geography. Concentration was paramount here. The ground was coming up fast as the wind howled over the surface of the wings like a banshee's wail. With some luck, he was able to maintain the right amount of trim and airspeed to keep the plane in a semblance of a glide, for all the good that would do him. As soon as the engine died, he'd had no choice but to drop down into a V-shaped canyon, skimming the tops of the taller pines. There was a small stream flowing through the middle, and he tried to line up his fuselage as best he could with the course of the water. Maybe he could at least avoid a head-on collision with the cockpit and a tree trunk. Maybe. In this situation, searching for a decent place to land was not an option. Gravity made that decision for you. His right landing strut snapped the top of a tree right off. The plane shuddered and pulled hard to the right, but he was able to keep it mostly on course. But as the plane descended lower, the trees grew thicker. In fact, a beefy tree now appeared ahead. There would be no snapping the top off of this one. "Hang on, Maggie." Maggie had gone silent, probably paralyzed with fear. When the wing hit the big tree, the Cessna seemed to explode. The noise and the violence was unreal. Jake thought he heard Maggie's scream intermingled somewhere in the cacophony of screeching metal and cracking plastic as the plane crashed and slammed from tree to tree. When they impacted the ground, it was with so much force the cockpit seemed to crumple all around him like the sides of a crushed soda can. Pain, sharp and searing in some places, dull and throbbing in others, flooded his body as he fought for the wind that had been knocked out of his lungs. The acrid odor of fuel was strong enough in the air he could actually taste it on his tongue. One little spark and they would burn to death. This horrific realization shocked him into action. "Maggie!" He strained his neck to the side, praying she was okay. Panic and despair accosted him when he saw that her side of the cockpit wasn't even there, ripped completely away at some point during the crash. Tears welled up in his eyes as he struggled to pull himself from the wreckage, the pain in his body arguing very effectively against such action. It didn't matter anyway. His left foot was pinned where the skin of the plane had crimped down on his leg, and every time he pulled, it felt as if someone was stabbing a hot fire poker into his shin and twisting it around. A wave of nausea assailed him. He was on the verge of losing consciousness. He guessed this was it for him, doubting very much that he would have the chance to wake, as the wreckage would most likely catch fire at any moment. At least he wouldn't be conscious for that. He prayed that the ELT had been triggered when they crashed, alerting the authorities. He had recently purchased a newer model with GPS. Search and rescue should be able to pinpoint their location. His final fleeting thoughts were of Maggie. He hoped that somehow she had survived the crash, that she was better off than he was, and that she would live a happy life without him. Then darkness finally took him into its cold embrace. Dun dun dun! What do you think? Okay, for those of you who were able to bear with me on that, I appreciate you staying with me. I hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. For those of you who did like it and have not read it, The Fifth Corner is available on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon.com, click my name, search my name in the search bar. All my books will come up, and in fact, you can actually get on the website, I believe. Sorry, itch. you can get on Amazon and click on the Kindle version, and they'll let you read the first 4 chapters for free right there, right off your computer. So you can go right now and see what happens to Jake and Maggie, where I left off. But yeah, it's right now the Kindle is $2.99. The paperback is like $16 or $17, something like that. I can't remember the exact price on that, but I'll leave a link in the description of this video. You can click on that link. It'll take you right to where you need to go if you want to buy it and find out what happens. And the rest of the story is a lot like that. So I tried to make it fast-paced, action-packed, and kind of a thriller and adventurous. So with some romance in there. So if you like that, then go ahead. I think, guys, that's going to do it for now. I've gone long enough. This video is now pretty long, 25 minutes. It's going to take me all night to upload it, even at this lower quality. Anyway, I appreciate your support. I appreciate everyone, all you. I hate saying the word fans. That just sounds wrong, but friends and fans and followers, I really appreciate it. And again, let me just remind you, before you click away and go about your normal thing, like and subscribe, share, and help me out. And I really appreciate everyone being there for me right now. And I will be on again shortly with another episode, and maybe it's going to be the field trip that I'm planning. I hope to be able to do that soon. But until then, I wish you all a great week, and until we see each other again, happy reading.